Microneedling can regrow your hair, and here's a picture of me before microneedling, and here's a picture of me after microneedling. And as you can see, I was able to gain back full stop hair by doing microneedling. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about my journey of doing microneedling, how I was able to regrow my hair by doing it, and how you can do the same. I also will share tips regarding microneedling, what I do on a daily basis, my routine, on possible side effects and how to avoid them. So welcome to this video, and for you guys who are new to the channel, my name is Alex and I'm previously hair loss sufferer who was able to regrow back my own hair, and I'm also certified dermatologist. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about microneedlings that you can use to stimulate hair regrowth. And before we start this video, I want to also notice you that if you are having scalp problems such as itchiness, burning sensation, redness with a lot of sebum and excessive oil, for example, then you have to address those problems first before you can start with growth stimulation. And if you need help with it, you can get hold of Rapid Regrow formal workbook or schedule a session with my team or me below this video. So let's dive into this video about microneedling and how it can help you with hair regrowth. And when it comes to microneedling, there are different methods how you can use it. And there are two methods for it. Method one is about wounding, and what it happens is that one basically starts to wound the scalp with microneedling device, and by doing so, one reactivates the stem cells and also increases collagen synthesis, which helps with hair regrowth. And usually, best approach for it is to go into depth on the needles. And best method for it is either derma stamp or derma pen. Right, and then other method is about absorption of the topical, and in this case basically what one do is to do a light microneedling on the scalp, and afterwards apply growth stimulant. For example, it can be minoxidil, but it can also be other type of growth stimulant. And difference between those two methods is that it is much more invasive with method that does wounding on the scalp compared to just absorption of the topical. And for absorption of the topical, usually it is simply just to use a derma roller because it is much more efficient, on rolling it over the scalp without pressure. Right, so that's kind of approach for it. And when it comes to in terms of the effect and how to structure it, like with a wounding, usually one does it once a week. Right, and then one waits for 24 hours before application of topical on the scalp. Right, this is important because when one does wounding on the scalp, there is, for example, some bleeding, some injuries to the skin tissue. So one has to be careful of application of the topical. But with absorption method, one can apply topical right away because the pores and the injuries that is done on the scalp is very minimal and it is not going to cause any problems. With wounding, for example, there is a risk. For example, there is risk of scarring alopecia. There is also risk of injuring nerves that are on the scalp or skin tissue on the scalp. It can also cause infection and increase inflammation on the scalp if one is doing it incorrectly. So it is much more problematical in terms of possible problems, right? So one has to be much more cautious and much more careful when doing a wounding compared to, for example, just light rolling with a derma roller for increasing absorption of topical. And other thing is that what I often get a question about, does just a light rolling on the scalp by itself help with a stem cell activation on collagen synthesis? And my answer to it is no, it's not going to help you with that part. It will just increase absorption of topical. So if you are looking for increasing basically growth factors, then you have to do wounding. If you want to get most effect out of topical that is applied on the scalp, then absorption method is a better option. And I also find it much more safe compared to possible risks that I mentioned previously. So derma stamp and derma pen are good for wounding. But if you are going to do just absorption method, as I mentioned previously, derma roller is usually best way to do it because it's much more efficient and you can do it much easier. And in my case, for example, when I do method for absorption, I don't use more than 2 to 3 minutes on my scalp when I do it. Right? So it's done very quickly. With a wounding, you have to be much more careful. You have to take time. Usually it takes, one session would take around 10 minutes, maybe even more. And also when it comes to, for example, derma roller, what is very important is that you have actually a high quality derma roller, Because a lot of guys I see on the internet are suggesting rollers that are low quality, they do contain blades, that doesn't have even real needles, and they also are too compact, which can cause the hair can be pulled out, for example. And there is other issues. Sometimes blade rollers has a bent needles, for example, damage to the skin tissue when one rolls to your scalp. So one has to select a high quality derma roller. And for derma rollers that I do use is a derma roller with 192 needles, and it has individual needles on it, right? So this is very important. And I have been doing derma rolling myself for last 11 years. So basically I have done it for a very long time, and it still works. I haven't had any damage to my skin or my scalp. It's been working very effectively for me. And when I first started with microneedling on my scalp by increasing absorption of topical, what happened is that I just did microneedling on my scalp in a frontal area. So basically what happened is that I did microneedling in hairline temples and around 5 centimeters into the hairline, so this area here. But I didn't do any microneedling in my top part or a crown vertex area on my scalp. And what happened is that around 8 months later, I did take a picture of how my hair looked like in the top part. And what happened is that there was significant difference in area where actually I was doing derma rolling, in this area here, compared to top part. And there was basically no results on the top part because I was just applying minoxidil on the top, but I was doing microneedling and minoxidil in the frontal area. And then I saw basically that I was not responding well to minoxidil without microneedling, right? So this was basically eyes-opening experience for me, because I knew, okay, so actually I had to also do microneedling on top of my scalp as well to get results there. And this is basically what happened, is that I started to do microneedling in my top or crown vertex area, and I was able to fill it in as well, right? So this is important to kind of be aware of, that first of all, microneedling can help with topicals that is applied on the scalp afterwards to make it more effective. Because even if you have been applying minoxidil like I did, and I didn't have any results from it on without microneedling, but adding microneedling can be highly beneficial in terms of seeing results, in terms of growing back the hair, when it's done in combination, for example, with a growth stimulant. So how often do I do microneedling? I do microneedling myself, since I do it for absorption. I do it 3 to 5 times a week. And I said previously, I use usually 2 to 3 minutes to roll over my scalp. And when I roll it over my scalp, I do it very lightly. I don't push down the derma roller. I don't have any bleeding there. There can be a couple of skin punctures, but that's all that is occurring there. Like there is no bleeding, a bit of redness, very slight redness, and that's all. And when I apply, for example, topical, I don't have any burning sensation after application of topical, and my scalp feels fine. And this is basically how I do it in terms of microneedling. But what you need to also be aware of, for example, what I also have been amplifying in my workbook, is that it is very important to keep scalp moisturized and hydrated when you are doing, for example, microneedling or other applying topicals on the scalp in general. This is very important, right? So if you have been reading my workbook, you have likely seen that I mentioned moisturizers that one can use. For example, one can use aloe vera to moisturize the scalp. One can use also some light oil on the scalp, or honey application, for example, can also be useful for moisturizing effect on the skin, on the scalp, right? Because you have to take care of the scalp if you are doing frequent microneedling. Even if you don't do a wounding, it is still important to take care of the scalp environment, because if one doesn't do it, what can happen is it can get out of balance, like it happened for me in 2016, and I started to lose my hair again because my scalp got out of balance of doing microneedling. So this is important tip for you guys, that if you are doing frequent microneedling, then you have to take care of the scalp environment and making sure that it stays in a good state in terms of hydration, in terms of moisturizers, and everything is fine. And if your scalp, for example, starts to get sensitive, you have to take a break from microneedling. So basically the way I do it is that I would test, let's say if I do microneedling for a couple of days in a row, I would test it out like by taking my index fingers and taking it around the scalp, kind of feel if there is sensitivity to my skin. And if there is skin sensitivity, then I would just skip a couple of days without microneedling. And this is an easy way to kind of see if there is an issue, right? Because if you keep pushing, if you keep doing it and overdo it, then it can lead to damaged skin tissue and it can make more scalp more sensitive. And I'm very careful with my scalp environment, because in the past when I was having inflammatory problems with my scalp, what happened is that it caused that I was having a lot of hair shedding, it caused that I was not able to apply growth stimulants. So I'm always very cautious about my scalp environment, and that's also a reason why I don't do microneedling that increases like growth factors in terms of wounding, because I find it much more problematical, especially for me, who had a tendency of getting inflammatory problems, and I was dealing with those inflammatory problems for almost 2 years back in 2010 and 2012, right? So this is important to be aware of. In terms of timeline and seeing results from microneedling, so if you do wounding by itself, a likely timeline for seeing results will be around 4 months, right? So that's could likely be a timeline for it if you do wounding once a week. And again, you don't want to overdo it, and once a week is likely sufficient to do it. And usually what happens is the guys usually do it either by itself, or they apply a growth stimulant, which is minoxidil, 24 hours after doing wounding. And in my case, for example, when I do stimulation with absorption method, what happens is that usually results appear sooner, like when I can actually notice results as early as 2.5, 3 months, if there is no other underlying problems that could be affecting or blocking results. And it is often more effective in terms of seeing results faster, right? So basically, if you do like a observation method compared to wounding, you can see results faster with that method. So those are things I want to share with you guys in today's video. And for you guys who are struggling with the hair loss, if you need help and guidance with the problem, you can schedule a call below this video. There is a link for it. Let's talk, let's speak and find out what is holding you back, why you're not seeing results from microneedling, and what you can do right away to actually improve your situation and get results and get hair regrowth. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and see you next one. Cheers.